Hi, I'm John. This is Holly. We're Let's Go Now Adventures. And in today's show, we're going to be talking about water safety. Specifically, the kind of water safety that you get when you're up in the mountains or when you're out camping or picnicking. The information that we're going to share today could save a life. Stay tuned.
Hi, thanks for joining us today on our live. We're so happy to have you here. You know, our goal with our channel is to help you have a fun outdoor experience, create some lifelong memories, and just increase your camping confidence so that you can have a better, more quality camping experience.
So the information that we're going to be covering, which is water safety in open water, which is lakes, rivers, and streams, is so important. So if it doesn't apply directly to you today, that's okay. Please share the video with somebody who does. I'm sure you probably do know somebody with small children or people that maybe are marginal swimmers or anybody that's going to be up near one of the mountain streams like we have here close to our house. The information today is so valuable, so if you please share that and pass that information along, we would really appreciate that. So did you know, according to the World Health Organization, that drowning is the process of experiencing respiratory impairment from submersion, immersion in liquid? Drowning outcomes should be classified as death, morbidity, and no morbidity. Now, that's a really scientific explanation or definition for what drowning is. Either way, whatever definition you choose to use, drowning, whether it results in a fatality or just injury, either way, it has devastating consequences. So please be aware, and that as we go over this information today, please take note and see if you can implement some of these things. And at the end, we're going to be giving you just 2 things that you can do today to make sure that you, on your next outing, when you're near open water, lakes, rivers, and streams, are that much safer.
Yeah, while we're doing our live, if you see things that look like snow floating around, it's actually a cotton tree, so excuse us. But let's start out with some alarming statistics. To start out, annually, there's over 35,000 fatal drownings each year. And drowning is actually the leading cause of death for children ages 1 to 5. And it's also the second leading cause of death in kids ages 1 to 14. Now, taking part in some formal swimming lessons or water safety classes can actually reduce the risk of drowning by 88%. Now, I'm going to give a shout out to my mom. We need to get you some swimming lessons.
All right, so for our discussion today, we're going to be limiting the scope of our discussion on water safety to open water. Open water, once again, would be rivers, lakes, streams, the kind of thing that we do when we travel to the outdoors. So a couple of things: that water provides great recreational opportunities. Why, in fact, we actually seek out to be at that campsite that's the closest one to the water.
Yeah, we do.
Why? So the kids can go down and wade in the water. Or I know Holly and we always try to get to places where it's really easy access to get our kayaks in. So we're actually looking for the ones that are closest to what potentially could be the most dangerous.
Yeah, the water sites are the best.
So what that just once again underscores how important water safety in open water really is.
Right. You know, right now is such a beautiful, beautiful time to be up camping and in the mountains. Everything is lush and green and gorgeous. The mountains are just calling us. Now, if you look at this picture, this shows some mountain climbers. Now, that could be dangerous if you don't have the right equipment, but the real danger is just below them in the raging mountain water rivers. Scary. You know, they're coming down so fast at this time of the year.
So one thing that could happen is that you could be pause, get distracted, answer a text message, take a photo, and just in the time that it takes you to do that, a young one could wander from a campsite all the way to a river like what you just saw, and they could be in there. And you know, with those little ones, it's not enough for their curious minds to just be able to look at something interesting like a raging river like that. It's also, they want to touch it. And the thing is that if they get down and climb onto those rocks from that video that you just saw, one slip and they're in that water, and before you know it, they're down. And so once again, just keep an eye on those kids.
You know, it's so scary at this time of the year. In fact, this week on the news, the #1 story here, at least here in Utah, was the raging waters and the flooding because of the snow that's melting and coming down into the rivers here. You know, the rivers are just going so fast, and it's so cold. And it's not only that, but if you were to accidentally slip and fall, there's rocks underneath that river, and there's tree limbs, and if you were to slip and fall, you would get banged around, and let me just say the outcome would probably not be good.
That's right. So there's some different risks of entering the water, swimming in open water that you don't see in,
Yeah.
say, a swimming pool.
Yeah.
One of those risks is that you can have rapid water changes. If you've done much swimming in open water, you know that getting into cold water can take your breath away. Or there's that reflex reaction where you want to take a quick breath. Another thing is that you can see quick drop-offs that you don't see in a swimming pool. So you could have kids playing in knee-deep water, and then they walk out 2 or 3 more steps, and next thing you know, they're in 7 feet of water, and it's now over their head. And if they're not proficient swimmers, that can cause a panic reaction, which is to draw a deep breath.
Yeah.
Another thing is to, as I change here, it's difficult to judge distances. This last weekend, we were up at a reservoir a couple hours east of here, and they had this nice swim deck, and that swim deck was out over 100 feet.
But it looked so close.
It really did. It looked like it was probably 30 or 40 feet away from the shore. And a marginal swimmer might think that I can make the 30 or 40 feet and swim out to the swim deck, but really it's over 100 feet away. And that's in open water. Remember, in a swimming pool, you're not going to have waves. In a lake, you do.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to judge distances. Things may look a little closer, and it may be tempting to make that swim.
Yeah.
You'll have limited visibility. Limited visibility would include, and every summer we hear about this, people diving into lakes that they can't see what's below the surface. And there are obstructions down there. They don't know how deep it is, or there are rocks or vegetation that's just under the surface that they dive into. So please be aware of that and adjust for that.
Yeah.
Another is that there can be dangerous currents. Did you know that there can be riptides in the ocean? Of course, people knew that. There can also be riptides in large lakes.
Yeah.
And what a riptide is it's a current that draws you away from shore. And just a quick tip is if you do get caught in a riptide and it's pulling you out to sea or out further into the lake, the trick to that is just swimming parallel to the shore until you find yourself that the current lightens up, and then you can angle your way in. So water safety equals water competence and water caution. So what water competence is it has 3 components. Water competence is water smarts. Just a brief description of what water smarts are is know your limitations. Never swim alone. Wear a U.S. Coast Guard approved life jacket where appropriate. Swim sober. Understand the dangers of hyperventilation and that hyperventilating that people do so that they can swim greater distances underwater can actually cause you to black out. Know how to call for help and understand and adjust to the unique conditions that I just spoke about when we talked about the differences of swimming outside. Swimming skills, having the correct swimming skills. Now, the American Red Cross defines a basic level of swimming as the ability to enter water that's over your head and then return to the surface. Float or tread water for at least 1 minute. Turn over and turn around in the water. Swim at least 25 yards and exit the water. The third component of water competence is helping others. These actions would include paying close attention to children or weak swimmers, knowing that sounds of someone drowning. You know, drowning can be, doesn't always have someone saying, help, help. The reason is they could already have a lung full of water and they can't make a sound. So drowning could be silent. But you'll notice there'll typically be some flailing around or that somebody will be missing. knowing the ways to safely assist a drowning person. The American Red Cross, and here's a saying for you. The American Red Cross has a saying that it is reach, throw, don't go. What that means is your first choice is to reach for somebody. If you could reach out and grab, or you might be using an oar or a paddle to reach out to someone. Another might be to throw a buoy or a life jacket attached to a rope that you can throw to someone to give them some relief and maybe reel them back in. The last thing is don't go. And the reason they say that is that more often than not, if somebody goes after a drowning victim that's not trained in rescue skills, they'll end up a victim as well.
You know, that's a hard one for me though, because you know, when you're in that panic situation and a loved one goes in the water, that would be really hard for me to not go after them. But we just had a recent story where a child had fallen in, the mom went in after, somebody that was standing by went after her, and all three of them did not make it. So, you know, it's hard to think clear in that situation, but, you know, possibly maybe you could go downstream and do something there. It's thinking smart instead of just like using those things that just automatically happen, because it may not turn out good.
That's right. So that's why thinking about this ahead of time and planning for that kind of situation, taking a moment and having a discussion with your family or with your spouse about what should you do, that's one of the things that will save lives.
Yeah. There's some more cotton. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about water caution. So, you know, it's not a bad thing to get with your family and talk with them as you get to the campsite, remind them, okay, these are things we need to be really careful of. I know everybody knows about water safety, but just remind them again. A little reminder does not hurt. You know, you tell a little child, no, don't go by the water, but that's going to go in one ear and out the other, because water is like a magnet to children. It's a magnet to us, you know, but to children, they want to see it. They want to play in it. They want to touch it. So just remember, even though, well, I already told them, yeah, you know, you still need to keep a very close eye on them. Another good thing is to swim with a second person. Have another person with you. Or let's say you're kayaking. Go out in pairs of two. Or have like a walkie-talkie so that you can communicate with them. You know, we were out at Sand Hollow a couple weeks ago, and I was on shore being the water watcher, but one, we forgot our walkie-talkies, and two, John went around a big red rock to get an amazing photo, but I couldn't see him. Okay, so there we had not done two of our rules. He went out of sight and we didn't have our walkie-talkies, and I was scared. So, you know, you follow these rules every single time, and that will help alleviate some of the fear and take that, you know, a chance that something might happen out of the equation.
Can't tell you how much trouble I was in after that.
I was mad. So another really important thing are life jackets. Yep, you know, people might say, oh, they're too bulky, or I don't need to wear that. I've got great swimming skills. But you never know when it's going to come in handy. So just put it on. It's so simple. Now, if you take a look at this picture right here, this is our dog Murphy. He is a Newfoundland, and Newfoundlands are actually bred for water rescue and swimming. They actually use them in the Coast Guard to save people. So Murphy has webbed feet, and he is an amazing swimmer. I mean, we always are throwing things out into the lakes and rivers, and he retrieves them just fine. But when we go out into the middle of the lake, it's so important for him to have a life jacket on, because if we were to tip over, I would probably get back in the kayak, but I don't think I could get him back in the kayak.
There's no way.
There's no way. He's 150 pounds. So we would actually be dragging him all the way back to shore. And that's why it's so important that he has a life jacket too. So make sure it's not just you and your kids, but also your pets. And then I guess the last thing would just be to respect the weather. You never know when something's going to arise, or just all of a sudden. We were out in our raft just the other day, sunny, bright, it was beautiful, we were enjoying it. All of a sudden the clouds came over and it started thundering out of the blue. Anyway, in this little tiny raft, those waves were coming up and over the raft, and it was actually scary. Did you feel scared?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was scary. We did have our life jackets on, but it just came out of the blue. Now, 50 feet away from us, my daughter and her fiance, they were in kayaks, and this huge wave hit them, and her fiance was tipped over and in the water in a second. Now, he couldn't get back in the kayak, so we were so glad that they were together so they could help each other. Now, we do have a few walkie-talkies at the bottom of the lake, but better a walkie-talkie than one of them. So she was actually able to pull him back to shore. So super important, you know, just respect the weather.
That's right. So a couple of things just is for drowning prevention. We've talked about increased awareness.
Yeah.
Things like expectations, rules, life jackets, and the weather. You know, the other thing is we want to designate a water watcher.
Yeah.
Now you may be asking, what is a water watcher? Well, a water watcher is someone whose job it is, above and beyond a lifeguard, to watch those that are important to us. So a water watcher's job is they're very specific about who they're watching, and they are going to be as close to that swimmer or non-swimmer as they need to be. So for example, if your job is to be a water watcher for a non-swimmer, you would need to be within arm's reach of them. On the other side of that scale, if somebody's a very competent swimmer and they're water skiing or doing some other sport like that, you can be further away from them, but you are watching.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple of things. Make sure you designate who's going to be water watching, when, and who. So there's an assignment of who you're going to be watching. Now, water watching is intense.
It
If you're
is.
doing it right, it can be exhausting. So don't have one person be the designated water watcher all afternoon. That's just not fair to that one person. Let's break it up. And so do some tag team water watching. Tag team water watching would look something like this. Holly, I'm going to take over for you. I'm now going to be the water watcher. Can you tell me who we've got watching? And then you might say that to watch for little Jimmy over there. He's struggling a little bit. And then we could adjust and I can make sure that I'm as close as I need to be to that group. But it's clear, yes, I am now taking over the water watching duties. The reason is to be clear about that's happening is you don't want to have that discussion. I thought you were watching them.
Oh, no.
And so,
Yeah. You know, John, I remember when our children were young and we would go to the lake or to a pool for the day and we would come back exhausted. That is a heavy duty with a lot of responsibility watching those little ones. I mean, more so than, you know, you're not just out there laying out and having a good time. That water watching is a heavy responsibility. You need to take it seriously. So one example of a water watcher is our friend Dave, who is an amazing kiteboarder. And we caught up with him last week at Starvation for him to talk about his water safety. Person. He does, it's called
kiteboarding.
Kiteboarding. When you see this video of what he does, you will be amazed. And so because we're doing our episode today on water safety, we just thought we'd let David kind of tell us some stuff about what he does to make sure that he's safe. Because this is like extreme sport, guys, so don't try this at home.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is just making sure you have the right equipment, the right safety. I have a lot of stuff where I can launch the kite if I get into trouble. And then just being aware of like the surroundings. So right here, the wind's kind of going side shore, so if I get in trouble, I can always kind of get back to shore. But if the wind was going offshore, I would not even come out, because any trouble I get into, I'm just going to be headed right towards the other side, and hopefully someone will come save me at that point. So really just being aware of the surroundings and having someone here that can
Kind of watch and
yeah.
stop. Yeah, because
get help if I need it.
well, I thought it was interesting. She was telling me that you guys have Apple Watches, and
Yes.
that's kind of a safety measure. What do you guys do with that? Like, how does that work?
So there's the walkie-talkie and it's cellular, but there's been a couple of times where I'm out there and the kite fell out of the sky or whatever, and she doesn't know if she needs to call for help or what, but I'm able to call her and tell her, hey, I'm good, I'm just gonna wait till the wind picks back up. Or there's been some lakes where I've been able to call and say, hey, just drive down to the other side of the lake. I'll meet you on that side.
Fabulous. I mean, this is such a good example of all the precautions that he's taken before he even thinks about going in the water, and which just is a good indicator. You know, Mother Nature, whether you're in water or on the land, you have to be so careful. And this is just spectacular. So thank you, David. It's
Thank
been
you,
wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks
Yeah.
a lot. You know, it was so fun to run into Dave, and if you stay tuned to the end of this video, we will show you some amazing video of what he does on his kiteboard.
So in today's video, once again, in summary, we talked about a couple of things: increasing our water safety by increasing our water competence, and being aware and having water caution. But the two things that you can do right away that can go out, even if you were to go out this afternoon and hit the lakes, rivers, or streams, is be aware of where the water danger is and what kind of danger that open water presents. And second, have a water watcher. Those are things that you could do immediately that would make all the difference in the world. For more information about anything to do with water safety, both in the pool, bathtub, and in open water, like we've been discussing, two great sources are the American Red Cross and Water Safety USA. And in the description down below, I will put the links to both of those organizations so that you could go there, gather some material, and maybe present it to your group or your family. Hopefully, if you do something like that, hopefully we can keep everybody a little bit safer this summer in the water.
So thank you so much for joining us today. You know, if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. We'd also love to have you subscribe to our channel. You know, we go live every Saturday at 4 and would love to have you join us. If we could even save one life from the information that we provided today, it would make it totally worth it. So we wish you a safe summer, and we're going to send you off with some amazing footage of Dave kiteboarding, and we'll see you on the next adventure.
That's right.